Hopefully we'll get a few more people in. All right. Well, I've got 2 o'clock. Everybody ready to go?
Most definitely.
Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to day 2 of IFMA's World Workplace 2020, the virtual experience. We are about to start our roundtable, FM Evolution or Revolution. And with us today, we have a great panel. We have Brian Haines, Vice President of Strategy with FM Systems, David Trask, National Director of Facilities, ARC Facilities, Chad Smith, Vice President of Product Strategy with iOFFICE Corporation, and Travis Shamel, Director of Business Development with Aramark. So welcome to our panel, welcome to our attendees, and let's get started. 2020 has been crazy, that's the understatement, right? And FM has been on the front line of getting people, tenants, residents, occupants back into facilities, and so far it's it's going the way it's going. Is the industry, are we in an evolution or a revolution? What do you guys think?
I'll go.
Yeah.
Revolution. Period. I mean, these kind of global events are really once in a lifetime events. We've seen significant change, a complete disruption of global utilization of facilities. And we've also seen an acceleration in the advent of completely new technologies and solutions to help people get back to the workplace safely. I would definitely call this revolution, not evolution.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, look at everything that's changed from the standpoint of, we all have hand sanitizer stations. I'm on site at a client yesterday, and I counted 47 hand sanitizer stations just from the walk when I got out of my car to the guy's office. Not to mention all the folks who are retiring or there's furloughs but more importantly, to your point, look at where technology is taking us now. So everybody knows how to use Zoom now. Everybody's using remote platforms, whether it's part-time or full-time.
Yeah, when you talk about technology, David, one of the things that we've recognized in the business is you would see technology looked at traffic in and out of restrooms and sensors on dispensers when they're empty or full, and they were a big thing for large event venues. But now you're looking at office complexes and different customers within manufacturing who are seeing those technologies as a way to be able to balance labor and have cleaning labor or have resources sent where they're needed versus just trying to do everything. So, how do we up our game from an infection control and prevention perspective? But at the same time, no company has a blank checkbook and can just say, hey, great, we'll just add resources. So technology for me has been the most amazing part is how fast, IoT's been around for a long time, but it was kind of a techie, space age type thing. And suddenly now it's mainstream. So absolutely.
Agreed.
Just to kind of build upon that, I guess I would put myself somewhere squarely in the camp of being a politician, because I'd say it's kind of an evolution, kind of a revolution. Mm-hmm. Although David's point around Zoom kind of convinces me, as I think of my 80-year-old parents using Zoom now fluently. That's a revolution. What I mean by the evolution part, though, is just I agree with everything that everybody said so far. The one thing that is interesting to me about the concept of evolution is some things like activity-based work and flexibility and things like that, and IoT, like Travis was just mentioning, have been here for quite a while. We're just using them in new ways and having to really think about them in a revolutionary way. So for me, it's a bit of both, but I agree it's more tipping towards the point of revolution, which is exciting. So
yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think in a lot of ways revolution, but a lot of the technology was already developed. The use cases are revolutionary, right? Things that we hadn't thought about. We were thinking about this early on as the pandemic was just rolling out, and organizations weren't prepared, and people were, massively leaving their facilities.
Right.
The use cases that we had to really brainstorm were not anything we had ever discussed, and so in that sense, I would say revolutionary. But the evolution of the technology, thank goodness that a lot of it was already either in its infancy or already developed and just hadn't been applied in specific ways to address it. So I think that's actually great insight.
Great.
What about scaling from large facilities, small facilities, office buildings, stadiums? Do you kind of see that they're all facing the same problems, that they, all of a sudden, regardless of the size of the facility, with IoT sensors, all these regulations that they're going through, are they facing the same issues, or is it because it's a bigger facility, it's a bigger issue? How does that go?
I think they all face some of the same issues. I think it's about the balancing of work and balancing demand with resources. And as you get into larger facilities, the challenges that are there in doing that. The other thing when you talk about scaling is very early in the pandemic, there became a lot of stuff that needed to get done. We were talking about bringing folks back to work. How do we do health screenings and temperature scannings? And you look at the technologies that's out there for that. But I was talking to a customer recently who said, we didn't have time for the normal channels of, let's get the quotes, let's get the budget. We really had to start to trust our frontline to go out and make decisions and innovate and work through things very rapidly. And it allowed us to know too that it was okay. Sometimes the first iteration of what we tried didn't quite work. And we learned something from it and adjusted and made the changes that we needed to make. But it has certainly challenged people to think outside the box and kind of push the envelope a bit, which is it's always good within our industry when there's a lot of focus on that frontline group that's trying to get stuff done, and allowing them to just go out and get it done has been an interesting aspect of what we've been through.
Chad, I think you were about to jump in. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, and to expand on that too, because I 100% agree. I've really seen, call it a revolution or an evolution, where people are leaning on other peers within the industry too. I've seen a huge focus on, what are you doing? How can I implement that? Where did you get those supplies? And then I also look at it as, what's going to be the move forward? What are some of those things that you're implementing today that are going to be that long term? Is it going to be those temperature check stations? Is it going to be, hand sanitizer stations? I don't think are ever going to go away now. They're here to stay. But are there going to be more health screenings and things like that? So I think we're really relying on our peers in the industry too to figure out, what's working, what's not working. I mean, I was at a hospital the other day that has these infrared scanners. When you walk through the entry, it automatically scans your temperature. And if you have anything, it pulls you aside. That wasn't in that hospital 3 months ago. So again, is that that's an innovation that's come to the forefront today. But I oftentimes catch myself thinking, well, what's going to be, 6 months from now, a year from now? Are these going to be in place? And the technology forefront, I think, is right there. These people are embracing this and figuring out those ways that we can definitely utilize the assets that we already have, or the ones that are already available that have been developed a while to maintain this. So.
Bobby, I think when you go back to your question about the size of I don't think it's the size of the portfolio or facilities. It really comes down to primary use. Many of the infections are occurring at thresholds. In other words, the entrances to facilities, exits, or places where people congregate. I think corporate facilities, government facilities really have an advantage because the amount of foot traffic tends to be less at those threshold points. When you talk about retail, you talk about hospitality, you talk about sporting venues, they've got a huge challenge in those facilities that is a lot more difficult to deal with. And then you've got the environmental factors as well, things like airflow. Do the facilities have a lot of external airflow coming out from the outside to the inside? There's just all kinds of factors that I think, regardless of the size of the facility, there's commonality in terms of the problem that they're experiencing. But the primary use of the facility, I think, is really where the challenge comes in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was going to say I think whether you're a small workplace or small facility or a large facility, I think the impact is there. I think that based on exactly like what Brian was saying, the nature of the work or the nature of the activity has an impact. But I do think that the larger facilities, the larger organizations are having to adopt technologies that they didn't really have on their tech roadmaps for 2020, just given the scale and complexity of what they're facing. So I think there's, at least from what I'm seeing with the clients I work with, on the smaller side, they're, still less inclined in some cases or don't have the budget to implement new technologies and new solutions that weren't here at the beginning of the year. Whereas at the enterprise level, they're absolutely having to rethink things and find the money and find the resources to really prepare for 2021 and hopefully a safer return to work.
So one thing, and this could be evolution or revolution, I think we're in an era where FM has never been, or maybe even forced to be, more transparent than it is now. How can FMs leverage this transparency evolution or revolution to their advantage?
I'll take a stab at that. I was just going to say what that really strikes in my mind is this conversation we've had around using FM and other tools to help create places that people want to work and attract talent. I think this is a conversation around the flip side or the other side of that coin, which is around safety. So I think there's a real opportunity for FMs to provide their value in ensuring that safety, but also the visibility and transparency of that is going to help to bring people back to work, bring people back into facilities. And it's a critical component to the solution of make sure that everybody's up and running and back to work sooner than later.
Yeah, and you guys saw me holding my phone up. It's like we were all already equipped with this tool. That's a phone. It's getting cut out there, but really the ability to be able to establish bi-directional communication is unparalleled in this time by being able to deliver information to people wherever they are. And frankly, the use of the phone is something that we were all already comfortable with. Not everybody was comfortable with Zoom. We've had to learn that, but the phone was something that felt very natural to a lot of people. We also all assume, right or wrong, that our phone is clean and that our phone, is not going to spread infection. We feel very comfortable with interacting with our phone to get information. And I think that from a corporate facilities or real estate perspective, communicating to the clients that you serve, it's really a great way to do it because everyone's got their phone all the time. So getting information, updates, keeping them in the loop, collaborating, and also giving them access to facilities resources if they need to come in and they want to book a safe space for the day, giving them the opportunity to be able to do that. There's honestly really nothing better than a phone because we've frankly all got one and they're pretty powerful. So I think that's a way, Bobby, that FMs could really use that more.
David, Travis, did y'all want to jump in on that?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's all right here. I mean, everybody has these, are usually attached to their head, but providing a way that your folks can access information to feel safe, to feel secure when they're coming into the workplace. But not only that, it's dealing with that remote staff, whether they're just normal day-to-day office staff or they're the FM staff that's bouncing around. I look at it from the FM perspective also of these folks are now charged with doing more at other sites that they're not used to. So having access to those other sites, on their phone before they just get in their car and drive over there, they can pull up stuff on their phone and access that information or share information between other colleagues so that they're not going out there blind. I think that's forced us all to move forward.
Yeah, I look at the transparency piece, Bobby, as never before. I've been traveling quite a bit lately, and every place that you stay right now, they've got their commitment to what they've done to have their space clean for you, right? You've got the door seals at some of the hotel chains that they're putting on where there's a visual, hey, they cleaned my room, right? So there's all of that. Workplaces that I'm going into, it talks about, here's our company's commitment to keeping it clean. I don't think anyone ever thought about, how are they cleaning my office? You just assumed it got done. Now there's a lot more about how are we doing it? What are the steps we're taking? So that ton of transparency. And speaking about the phone, I don't know if I'll ever need a restaurant menu anymore. You just scan the QR code and you can see what you need to order. So that one, you know, wow, these restaurants will have to save on menu printing anyway. But that's a great. I love that. I think it's awesome.
You know, that's interesting, Travis, because I was thinking about the way it's modified my own behavior early on. You know, because I'm in this profession, I'm read the research constantly. I'm one of those people that's, you know, looking for the facilities that are doing it right. I was thinking about grocery stores, and early on, I actually started shopping at an entirely new place because they took it so seriously and they had really great protocols. And the place that I normally went to didn't. And so they lost my business for 9 months into the future. And I'm wondering if, you know, FMs, I think, really need to communicate the same way so that when employees come back, trust me, I've seen a lot of surveys. There's a lot of anxiety, regardless of whether or not there's a vaccine out there. People are feeling anxious, and whatever you can do to tell them that the place is safe and that you're taking it seriously, I think is going to go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, that brought up a thought. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said one of the biggest emphasis that he's got multiple buildings in different states, is how they are moving people in and out of the building. And it was, I mean, to your grocery store point, I go into the grocery store today, there's still the floor graphics saying one-way direction, this way down the aisles, or, you know, all the different other, you know, you must wear a mask. That wasn't here 6 months ago. Well, he's now worrying about which way do I lead people through the building? Do they go counterclockwise through the, you know, through the building? Do they go clockwise? Does this staircase over here, is this for, you know, going down or up or whatever? That's just a complete and total shift in bringing those people back. They did that with the emphasis on we've got your employees' safety first, period. And employees are asking, what are you doing?
I think employees are also asking what they can do as well. You know, I'll do it anyway. When Brian pulled up his phone, said we all, you know, assume our phones are clean. I'm sitting here now in 2020 with
Yeah.
That's kind of indicative, and I'm at home in my home office, right? So I think there's been a revolution, even if you were a clean freak like me before COVID happened. I think that a lot of people, to both David and Brian's points, are concerned about going back to the office. And so part of that is, you know, how can we not only show them that we're doing things to make the workplace and their facilities and environments safe, but giving them tools that can make them feel more confident in their own actions, whether it's a mobile solution to get around or to book things, or to, I think it was Travis was making the point around menus, using their own mobile devices to perform important activities at the office so that they don't have to touch other people's phones or things or whatever it is. So,
right. Yeah.
So what is the industry going to do with the space when as the return happens? I mean, are we going to expand the square footage that we manage to accommodate social distancing, or are we going to enforce or regulate social distancing just by limiting the amount of people in any given space?
You know, I've heard anecdotally in the beginning, some companies were starting to look at additional real estate. I've talked to other companies lately that are saying, you know, they don't know if for what they consider non-essential or office type positions, if they'll ever come back. But I think it's a very interesting decision, and it's when you look at evolution or revolution, that's one of those revolution pieces, because the pendulum was swinging towards increased floor plate density, you know, more common workspace, you know, collaboration spaces, and now it's going completely the other direction. And so I think the jury's still out, you know, as to whether, you know, the real estate space looks the same, if it compresses or if it expands. So it's an interesting thought for sure.
I agree. I think the jury's still out. I think the knee-jerk reaction, like we've seen in a couple of other, you know, critical times in history, whether it was 9/11 or the dot-com boom or whatever, that people were going to walk away from the workplace and real estate was going to get cut and things like that. And I think that was the initial response or thought at the beginning of all this, and that may still be the case for a lot of organizations. But on the other hand, I think the fact that, you know, we've all been forced to work from home, and well, not everybody, but most of us have been forced to work from home. And I think that employers and employees alike have realized that they can be productive. Maybe you don't want to be at home all the time, but just with that increased flexibility. And I think what is revolutionary, and this goes back to my first comment around activity-based work, is that there is going to be much more of a hybrid type workplace of the future where we're going to come and go. And therefore that does give space planners, facility managers flexibility in terms of how they design their spaces, and they can use the space they have to ensure physical distancing, or maybe they'll determine they need to actually go out there and acquire space. So long story short, I agree. I think it's a bit of a TBD, and I think there's a whole lot of different scenarios based on the organization and the nature of the work.
Yeah, and I think the selection criteria for selecting real estate the criteria is going to change. The way it's used is going to be changed. But, you know, there's still a lot of organizations that have a lot of sunk costs, long real estate leases that they've negotiated. They've got buildings that they own, so they've got a significant capital investment. No one's just going to walk away from those facilities. I mean, some will, but it's not going to be common. And I think as time stretches out and you know, a vaccine becomes prevalent, the infection rate decreases, people start going back. I think we'll see a long-term shift in the way we think about our real estate and what we select to be in our portfolio. But certainly buildings are the critical cornerstone of organizations. It's where we gather, where we work, where we collaborate. That's not gonna go away. It's just gonna be different. So I think a change in the way we look at our real estate is gonna definitely be an evolution there.
David, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I agree. I think the jury's still out. And I think it really depends on the industry or the vertical. I mean, I think you're going to see potentially some expansion within education, especially at the K through 12 level, because now, you know, with the social distancing, they're trying to find enough space to even put people. But when it comes to commercial space, I think the jury's out. Look at the folks who are remote. I personally have not reported to an office in 5 years. I don't have a home base office. My home base is my office. I don't have a physical facility that I go to. But I think a lot of companies are starting to look at, does that make sense for me to do that 100% remote, or is it some kind of hybrid model? And I'm hearing hybrid is over and over and over again is what companies are taking a look at. But it's all about flex. You know, what are they going to do and what makes sense for each org?
Mm-hmm. So how rapidly has let me rephrase that. How has the response time changed into the way that FM has been able to adapt, whether you see it as a revolution or an evolution? We're, you know, kind of going on the fly, putting the plane together as we're flying it, but regardless, the response has had to have been right there. Is that correct, and will that change?
Well, we suppressed 10 years of product decisions into about 9 months. So I would say it definitely changed that trajectory. Talk about reprioritizing. I've seen organizations, regardless of what type of service they provide in the industry, mm-hmm. absolutely move at warp speed to get things done, to really be there for our clients and for the industry who need to return, and for facilities teams who need solutions. It's been almost mind-boggling. You know, I keep hearing people say that, you know, 2020 has been the longest 10 years of my life. Well, you know, we've basically taken 10 years of future development, I think, and squished it into about a year to get those solutions out. So it's been crazy fast.
Yeah, I've experienced a thing. I was involved in the build out of one of the alternative care facilities in Chicago, and it was an interesting process in that, you know, there was a lot of problems to solve, and you know, you'd get a problem in the morning, and they would say, you know, go solve it, and you went out and you worked on it, and you came back and you reported in the afternoon. Well, here's what worked, here's what didn't, and hey, I tried to solve that problem, but I found 3 more. And so the innovation process was I think very accelerated, as much by the permission to to go try something, and if it doesn't work, what did we learn from it, and how we do it different the next time until we get the solution solved and addressed. And it was for me a very interesting process, because you watched just a lot happen very quickly, and what the end product was great. But as you were saying, Brian, it's if we'd have done it the normal way, it would have taken 5 years to do the design, right? Another year to build it, right? And so it's just been very different from that perspective.
Has the speed and the 10-year year make anybody else besides myself feel like you've aged 10 years in 1 year?
There's a lot of gray in here.
For sure.
I completely agree with what Brian was saying. And I think, in the software world in particular, I think all of us have been feeling that whole pace of speeding things up for quite some time, right? That's partially the culture we live in and the sign of the times, but I do think it's really sped things up this particular year. I'm curious if you guys have seen anything or experienced anything as part of the whole pandemic, and just kind of looking at the silver lining in the clouds. Has there been anything that surprised you guys that you hope we've learned that sticks with us moving forward? I don't see, and I say that because there's been a lot of doom and gloom this year, and I completely, feel that. I think we all do, and a lot of anxiety. But have you guys seen anything that you like that we've learned that you want to carry forward?
It was an interesting comment I'll share, that early on, as the kids came home from school, and my youngest said to me, I never truly understood the value of the teachers that I work in, that teach me every day, and I really miss them. And he said, I even miss the ones that I didn't really like very much, but I miss them too. And so I think when you look, the value of the interaction and collaboration that we have with people, and missing that, you get a lot more done, which is why I think we'll eventually be back in the workplace. You get a lot more done when you put people in a room together and you work a problem until it's finished than you do on, it takes 10 Zoom calls to do the same thing, right? So I think the value of interacting and learning and teaching, it was just a really astute observation from someone who's young. It was cool for the first couple of weeks, not being at home, not having to go to school and working remotely, but it very quickly, it's like, wow, I really miss those people. So, yeah.
I think, and that's a fantastic question, and it forced me to really think. And I think because the pace is so fast, that one of the things that I've seen organizations learn is to not fear failure nearly as much as they did in the past, because we have to make decisions and fail fast forward. That's a quote that my favorite CEO of all time used to say. She used to say that she wanted our organization to fail fast forward, and that was try, fail, reiterate, and don't be afraid to just do it again and with a different effort. So I think I have seen that across the industry in a lot of ways. We've seen companies really want to get back into the office, and they've gone back, and they've had to pull back very quickly because an infection occurred or something happened, or an outbreak, maybe local government rules changed, and the number of people that were allowed to gather changed, and then they had to close those facilities down, and they just did it. I think the spirit of just moving forward together and not being as fearful, I think is really terrific.
I agree with everything that you said. I think the emphasis on the compassion for your fellow employee, the families of your employees. I think I know more about the families of some of the folks that I've worked with, that I've worked with for years. I just hear about good, bad, and indifferent. But I think for me, it's become such a priority on safety, on the well-being of my, of staff within organizations is to the forefront today. I'm encouraged by that. I think that's fantastic because they had to, and it's not just about their fellow man or woman. It's about the visitors to their sites. It's about their staff being remote or whatever. I think that compassion toward your fellow man has really come to the forefront. I think from our industry as a whole, I've seen a speed up and acceleration of to your point too about the processes, building things from a software standpoint. We're building things faster than ever, and I'm sure you are as well. But also I've seen the client end users are moving faster to just literally pull the trigger because they're short. It could be because they're short staffed, or it could be because, you know, they've always wanted to, but now it's to the forefront that they have to. You know, to your point right here, you know, they're not right here. They've got you know, rooms full of stuff, or they've got you know, 2 guys that know where everything is in your building. That type of mentality, that's going away. So,
Well, here we are, 30 minutes.
Wow.
It flew by. There's still so much to go over. And here we are already at 2:30. So if you're with us live and we have some other breakout sessions that are starting right here at 2:30. So this would probably be the time that you would want to exit. But just real quick, let's reiterate. Evolution or revolution? Give me your answer, David. Evolution or revolution?
I think it's a revolution.
All right, Travis.
I think it's a revolution.
Brian.
Yeah, revolution, but also evolution.
Chad, your final word.
I've been moved.
I was just going to say odd man out. It's an Evo revolution.
There you go.
So there you have it. It's a little bit of both. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the conference. And as we get up to the holiday season, enjoy your holidays. Thanks for joining us. Be safe. And thank you, FMs, because y'all are making life happen right now. So we appreciate everything y'all do. Y'all take care.